The first album I am waiting on to listen to is actually Cryptopsy's latest record, As Gomorrah Burns. This came out, I believe, in September when every major record was coming out. Now, I really liked the songs that I listened to off their first two records, Blasphemy, Made Flesh, and None So Vile. I have actually heard really positive things about this new record, As Gomorrah Burns. I don't know how you guys think, but I heard really positive things, which makes me feel happy because I feel like people were nervous for the release of this new record. The single In Abeyance, I did do a reaction on when they first released it as promo for the album, and I thought it was okay. It wasn't anything super memorable. For me, it's like I would rather listen to their first two records more and get familiar with their older sound first. Also, discover this kind of change in their sound. You know, I just feel like I need to understand that change more. Second album I am waiting on is Suffocation's new record, Hymns from the Apocrypha. Now, I'm actually going to go and see Suffocation with Incantation later this month in November. I'm excited about that. Suffocation is a band that I did do, I think I did a 5-song discography dive or something like that on my YouTube channel. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of them. I really want Suffocation to blow me away with their live sound, because sometimes for these bands, I love to just go in blind. I like to go into a live performance with the band not knowing anything about the artist or the music. Like, I haven't heard it, and then I can kind of see how I like the live sound and then compare that live sound to the actual album and see what they did differently, how they played differently. That's kind of what I'm hoping for with Suffocation, because they're obviously touring this new album, so if it sounds good, then I'll give this new album a listen. Number 3 is going to be Autopsy's new release, Ashes, Organs, Blood, and Crypts. Now, a lot of you said it was a pretty okay album. I think I did a poll on my YouTube channel, and I think a lot of y'all gave it around like a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's really cool that Autopsy released a new record this year, and they just released a record like last year, so that's like a really quick turnaround. Now, why am I waiting on listening to that album? I listened to Autopsy's entire second album, Mental Funeral, which I thought was really good. I want to spend more time with their Severed Survival debut and Mental Funeral to really figure out what I think about them before I come to this record, before I come to this new sound, and that's really all it is. I want to get familiar with the older stuff and then kind of see how their sound developed. Now, this one was going to be a little interesting. I want to wait on listening to Poppy's new record, Zig. Now, if you're not familiar with Poppy, she started out as a YouTuber, and as far as I know, she was kind of doing these like Melanie Martinez style music videos and stuff, but her music was a little harsher than like what Melanie Martinez was doing. It was kind of this like alternative metal punk sound that she had. It was a little more disturbing, a little bit harsher. So Anthony Fantano, not that his opinion is extremely relevant here, he hated this album, and the big things that he mentioned was the production. So the only thing I can say about the production is I did listen to the single Hard, which I really, really liked the chorus of. I felt like the melody, her highs, it was so girly, it was pretty. I loved it. Everything else on the song of Hard is trash. I don't like it. I don't like the extreme vocal effects. It sounds so muddy and so overbearing, and it's not good. And I've heard a lot of people complaining about the production, so it makes me nervous. I also know that she explored more of this like industrial sound with this record, which is a little bit more of a different direction than her previous stuff, because she was kind of doing this like pop alternative metal stuff. So I'm waiting on listening to the record because I don't want to listen to that and be so turned off by her music that I can't even, I'm that type of person that would listen to that record and be so turned off by it that I'm like, ugh. The next one is Obituary's Dying of Everything. Now, this record came out in January of 2023 this year. It actually came out a few weeks, like probably 3 weeks after I had seen them live in Los Angeles. So that was really cool. I've known about this record for a while, holding off on listening to it for this entire year because I had never heard Obituary except for that live performance. And then I finally dove into Slowly We Rot recently, which I did, I think, the full album reaction for Patreon, a couple single reactions for my YouTube channel, and I loved loved that album. I'm obsessed with Obituary. They're definitely one of my favorite death metal bands. They're swampy. They're delicious. I love them. I love Obituary. I want to approach this newer record as like, they're not in their prime, you know, and their best stuff is before this. I want to hear their best stuff first before I hear their, it's going to sound mean, but their old man stuff, you know. An album I'm waiting on and probably have no interest in listening to at any point soon at all is 72 Seasons by Metallica. One of the reasons is because I want to listen to Metallica's other bad records first. Like Saint Anger, Lulu, Load, and Reload. The biggest things I've heard about this record is that it's way too effing long and there's no heart and there's no soul in the music, in the solos. And I heard that with If Darkness Had a Sun. I did do a reaction to that on my channel and it didn't have anything. It had no soul. It just sounded like they were just doing this song because they wanted to do it for like a cash grab or something. It's almost like they were forced to do it. Like they had to do it. And I don't like that. There was no soul. I feel like I want to listen to their older, worse records, like I mentioned, in order to kind of understand where 72 Seasons is placed in that. Like, is it just a mediocre, boring record? Or is it a bad record that also matches the energy of like Saint Anger, Lulu, Load, Reload, etc., etc. The next record I am going to be waiting on for just a smidget is actually Rotoscope by Spiritbox. They just released The Fear of Fear, which I want to listen to. I'm going to do a review video on, and then I also have not, surprisingly, dove in to Eternal Blue yet. The only song I have heard off of that album is Circle With Me, and I love that song. I have more interest in listening to The Fear of Fear and Eternal Blue because they both have two very, very strong singles that I'm just boom, wanting to like gravitating towards. I did listen to Rotoscope, the title track, the single, and reacted to it on my YouTube channel. Was not it. It was not for me. I didn't like it. They were kind of experimenting with a few things, so I still have hope because it's Courtney, girl. The next one's kind of a hot take. Are you ready? So I am waiting on listening to Blackbraid 2. This is a atmospheric black metal band from New York, and their whole shtick is like Native American atmospheric black metal. So I was very interested at first when I heard Blackbraid 1, which is their first record. They only have 2 albums. They're relatively new to the scene. I was very curious. Atmospheric black metal can be sometimes hard for me to digest, but this was pretty interesting. There's a couple instrumental tracks that are very pretty, and it's very Native American-esque, you know. It makes you feel like you're walking in the mountains and it's cold and it's foggy and you're out in nature, and it's like visual for me, I guess. I'm waiting on the second album because I was already on the fence about listening to it because it's over an hour long. It's an hour and 5 minutes, and I was like, boof, but that's a long record. Long to sit through, long to play. The second reason is one that I'll briefly mention. I'm going to point you to a YouTuber. His name is Boris T. He mostly focuses on black metal on his YouTube channel. He's really cool. You should definitely go check him out. He does some reactions. He talks a lot about black metal. Again, it's Boris, Boris, space capital T. I'm going to butcher the festival's name, so just pardon my American accent. It's called the Midgardblot Festival. I haven't seen the video since this whole kind of like fiasco happened, all this drama at this festival happened. He talks about the situation a lot better than I can because I believe he actually either went to the festival or the festival is in his country. He's not from America. He has a lot more information than I do on the situation, on what exactly happened. I encourage you to watch it because I'm just going to briefly mention it. That's my disclaimer. Moral of the story, Blackbraid, recently a few months ago, were extremely unprofessional and disrespectful to festival security at Midgardblot Festival. And it really just turned me off to the band. Now, you're entitled to your own opinion. Whatever you believe, you believe. Obviously, I'm not here to get political or whatever. I'm just stating that for me personally, with all my experience being a musician, I've played at festivals, I've played at venues, I've done the thing. So all I know is that professionalism goes a long way when it comes to being in the music industry. Their behavior really turned me off, honestly. So I don't have a lot of interest in listening to this record, especially with the length of it, anytime soon. That's really what I just don't have an interest in listening to it for the time being. I am going to be waiting for a little bit on listening to all of the Cannibal Corpse albums that feature Corpse Grinder. Why, you may ask? Because I'm actually starting to dive through the entire Cannibal Corpse discography, and I mean fully dive. So on my Patreon, I just recently did an entire full album reaction to Eaten Back to Life by Cannibal Corpse featuring Chris Barnes. If you are not familiar, may or may not be living under a rock, the first 4 records for Cannibal Corpse are with Chris Barnes as the vocalist, who's now the lead vocalist for 6 Feet Under. Corpse Grinder is now the current vocalist and has been for a while for Cannibal Corpse. The first 4 right now for Chris Barnes, I'm kind of diving into those and doing review videos on them. And then I'll be getting into the Corpse Grinder stuff. So I'm excited about that because I want to start all the way. I want to comb through from the beginning and see how it developed. And so that way I can figure out what's the best Chris Barnes record. A lot of my YouTube community said The Bleeding was the best one. So I'm excited to dive into that. Then I also want to decide for myself what's the best Corpse Grinder record for that era, and then what's the best overall Cannibal Corpse album. I love Cannibal Corpse. We've got all of the Corpse Grinder era records on cassette, some on vinyl. Now it's just about trying to get, I think I've got Eaten Back to Life on vinyl now. So now I just got to collect the other 3. This next one's my last pick. This is a very, very brief hold. A brief waiting period for this record. The Year of the Knife and their new record, No Love Lost. I can't tell you how excited I am to listen to this record. Why am I waiting on listening to it? The 2 reasons. I'm busy listening to and recording content for my channel and for this. And I just don't have the time. The second one is Thanksgiving. So I am, like I've mentioned earlier in my stream, going to be out of town from Wednesday through Sunday. So I'm waiting until after the holidays to sit down and give this album the time and attention it deserves. Now, I had the opportunity, I came so close to seeing Year of the Knife with Creeping Death a couple months ago, and I wasn't able to see them because 2 days before that, you might have heard that they got into a really awful car crash. It was a whole thing. It was tragic, and everybody's survived, but there's obviously a lot of recovery involved. And so a lot of people were very surprised, actually, that they released this record, especially so soon after that whole accident. I'm so incredibly excited to listen to this album. I have heard amazing things. I'm waiting just for the next week or 2 because I want to give this album the time and the attention it deserves. That's just how I am. I feel like I need to sit down and listen to this in its entirety with no distractions. I don't want to just listen to a couple songs and then do something else or go to work or whatever. That's what I feel. That's how I feel about it.